Hi there. This is Denise Wakeman, your host of Adventures in Visibility, and I am so excited to be here today with a good friend of mine, and I'll tell you a little bit about our relationship in a minute, but also that you're here with me today because we're going to be talking about how to be a kick-ass blogger. And you know, if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that I started blogging a really long time ago in 2004. It seems like, I don't even, it's been a decade. Oh my gosh, I was going to say it seems like it's been a decade. Well, it has been because it's 2014. So, blogging's been my thing for a really long time, and I've been talking about it for years and years and years, and blogging to me is one of the best things that any entrepreneur, author, speaker, coach, designer could be doing to build their business. So today, what I'm doing here on Adventures in Visibility is I've invited my sister-in-law, Lynne Knowlton.
Everybody knows the secret now.
Yes, Lynne is my sister-in-law. We met, in 1996.
Something years, yeah. Well, how come we only met 20-something years ago? We're only 21.
Yeah. Well, in 1996 we met. We are both married to brothers. I am no longer married to the brother I married, but Lynne remains my dear, sweet sister-in-law, and I have watched her growth and her evolution and her meteoric rise in the whole blogging thing. And she's done it in fits and starts, but the last few years she has really taken off. So that's why I wanted to invite her to talk with you today, because she is doing something that a lot of bloggers don't. She is really forging her own path. So I'm going to be introducing Lynne in just a second. I do want to say that you are welcome to post questions in the comment section below this video if you're on the event page. And
if they're not complicated. No trick questions.
No trick questions. But between Lynne and me, we'll be able to probably answer your questions if you have them. And I do want to give you a warning. There could be lots of laughing on this hangout because Lynne is really funny and she likes to have fun.
I thought you were going to say swearing.
Oh, there might be some swearing too. Okay, so if you have tender ears, then you might want to plug them, but then you'll miss all the fun. So anyway, Lynne, I'm turning it over to you. Would you please give a little bit about your background, what you're doing, and how you got into blogging? And welcome to Adventures in Visibility.
Well, thank you. It's my first one, everyone. So if I have spinach in my teeth or if I fall on the table, don't be alarmed. I'll get right back up again. It's just like blogging. Just pick yourself up again. But I first started blogging years ago when people were still asking the question, what is a blog? And the only person I knew to even ask that question was Denise, actually. What do you do? Do you blog or glob or what? No explanation for it. But it came in handy for me because I needed to start a private blog at first that was just for my friends and family, and then make that public so that I can, what was the best way to describe it? I guess where I could sort of practice with my voice and do it in a way where at the time, my dog was listening, my mom was listening, my kids were listening, and it was safe to just try. So I highly recommend that actually for a lot of people. If you're just starting out, start small and do it in baby steps so you start to get your feet wet. And I did that, and I started to realize that I really love it. Like it was addictive. It's like crack. And not that I've done crack, kids. I would never do that. So we didn't mention I was going to talk about drugs, Denise, but anyhow.
No drugs.
No drugs. I promise I don't do drugs, I swear. So I continued blogging, and I did that for about 2 or 3 years, and we moved several times during that time. And the primary reason why I did it at that point was because, oddly enough, was because of cancer. And my dad had cancer. And I blogged about that and kept in touch with him and the rest of the family members. And it makes me feel emotional at this point to talk about it, so I'll try not to really talk about it because I don't want to make you guys cry. I'm not usually a bad person, but my dad passed away. See, it's gonna make me cry. And this is part of what blogging is all about, you know. It's just real life, and real life stuff happens. And I was like this with my dad. So when he passed away, I lost my voice, literally, my blogging voice. And so I gave up on blogging. I walked away and took a break from it all, and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And then about 2 years passed after that, and I started to realize how much I missed it. It's a great way to communicate with people. It was a great way to reach out to not just my friends, but just out to the world. And sharing with Facebook is lovely. I love that. But I needed to go farther. I needed to stretch my arms, and I needed to make it about business. So at that point, my blog now, which exists today, is Design the Life You Want to Live, and that's how it was born. Hope that answered that question, and I hope I didn't cry.
It's okay if you cry. I mean, that's that's who you are. But so what? You decided that you wanted to start again, more business oriented. But when I read your blog, what I get is just so. I laugh a lot, and I also learned something along the way. So it's not, I wouldn't call your blog a typical business blog.
Right.
And, for the people who may not know you, why don't you say a little bit about what your business is? Because you didn't really give us that little tidbit either.
Right.
Yet.
Well, I'm a designer, and I have a love of doing all kinds of projects, not only for our house, but we also built an adult-sized treehouse. We built a treehouse for our kids, and then we promptly never let them in it because it's way too much fun. But I started a design blog with the intention of making a difference for other people, to help them, to educate them, to entertain them, to empower them to want to do it in their own homes, and to really show them that it's really not that hard, and it can be a hell of a lot of fun. And if I can have fun doing these things, anybody can. It's really, so I wanted to simplify the process so that they could go home, and even if it meant making a twig curtain rod and hanging a curtain on it and making it super unique, that's the kind of things I wanted to teach. So to me, that was starting a business because I wanted to grow my blog and grow my traffic to be a business blog, in that eventually my goal was to monetize my blog. And I couldn't do that with a personal one, of course, but I could with business because I could inspire. Exactly.
So it's your business is Design the Life You Want to Live, yet there's a lot of different segments on your blog. And just as a side note, Lynne and I have done some work together. I got to go work in her tree house last summer, which was absolutely fantastic, and we really did some clarification on how to make the blog really address a lot of the things that she does, because Lynne really combines the personal and the professional, the personal and the business, and that's really important to her. So, rather than just like, okay, it's a blog about cancer or it's a blog about DIY, there's different elements within that, and that's what we wanted to really pick out. So do you want to talk a little bit about that for us, Lynne, about how you decided to segment your blog?
Yeah, so ultimately the great thing that you taught me actually was we all have different interests and we all have different things that we want to blog about, but to basically create categories and so that they all met at one spot. So for me, it was about designing the life you want to live. That could be designing your travel life, designing your work life, designing your home life, designing your kitchen, designing your family life, what you want out of your life. So I was able to categorize everything and still put it into those buckets. And Denise, that was the one thing that was so great that you helped me with, is that if I wasn't going to blog about something that fit into those categories, then not to blog about it. And there's exceptions to every rule, because sometimes I just want to blog about whatever's going on, and that's okay too. You know, it's okay to break out of the pack. If anybody hears an odd noise behind me, by the way, there is a massive snowplow coming up my driveway. I'm in the middle of a snowstorm in Canada, and it is literally record-breaking snowfalls. So that's what you're hearing out there.
Well, I can't hear it, so that's okay. No, I can't hear it. No, but yep. Oh, now I do. Okay. Well, you know, that's always the way it goes. It's always somebody, you know, during one of these live streaming videos, it's like somebody rings my doorbell, the cat decides that he wants to eat something and won't shut up, and, you know, that's just the way it is. This is real life here, and that's why I call it Adventures in Visibility, because you never know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, there might be a cat.
There might be a cat, exactly. So, Lynne, tell me a little bit about voice, because you have a really unique way of writing your blog that doesn't conform to the norm, and it's, you know, the gurus of blogging, you know, many of whom would say, oh, that's, you know, you shouldn't be writing like that on your blog. But tell me about it, because that's really how you started getting traction and getting noticed. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I think the best way to describe that is that I write like I talk, and I think that if any bloggers out there starting or even in the middle of blogging, one of the most important things you can think about is to write like you talk, because you'll never get talker's block. At least I haven't, because my mouth, it just doesn't stop. But so keeping it real, I mean, I think we all hear the word to be authentic over and over and over again. So I don't want to sort of beat that word down, but I do believe in keeping it real, keeping it absolutely real. And I don't mean telling like that, you know, that no one needs to know what you had for breakfast that day, not that kind of real, but just telling what is honestly going on and telling it in a story, because everybody loves a story. And as soon as I took my blog from writing about me and my story and thinking about, well, yes, I am writing about me in this particular story, but what is in it for the reader? So when I started thinking, it's not about I, it's about you. So when I started reversing, literally going through my blog posts and taking out the word I and replacing it with the word you and making it about my reader, that was a game changer. That was a huge game changer. That, and by being real and involving emotion, because that's what is going on in life, it really ramped up all the engagement on my blog. There are some blog posts I have that have 300 blog post comments in them. The conversations sometimes I find are more interesting than my blog post itself. I love hearing from people, and I actually answer every single one of them. Both by email and in my comments. And I took that cue from Gary Vaynerchuk, and it's working for me. So I think that, I don't mean working for me in a negative way. I mean it's working for me because it makes me happy to make a difference, and it makes others happy to feel like they're part of the conversation.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about your blog posts is that, you know, since I do have the advantage of knowing you and having spent a lot of time with you over the years, so when I read it, I'm hearing you. It's like I can, because you are writing exactly the way you talk, so I feel like I'm having that conversation with you in my head, and that it's your voice, your tonality, everything, which is one of the brilliant things. And, you know, it's not easy for bloggers to break out of the way we were taught to write in school, right, for example. You know, right, especially when I was in, you know, high school and university, it's like there was a certain way that you wrote, and it was very much more formal. And boy, I have had a heck of a time breaking out of that. So, how were you able to do that?
Well, this is one of the tricks that I started with, because there was often times where I thought, really, should I write how I talk? Do I really need to drop that F-bomb? Do I really need to, you know, I know how to speak correctly and how to spell correctly, but do I really need to do those kinds of things? And so I tested. I believe everything in blogging is test and measure. So I took a chance. I think that when you write a blog post and you hit that publish button and you feel a little bit nervous and your heart starts to that's a good thing, because when you feel that fear and you're wondering what's going to happen by being so vulnerable and by being so out there, you'll be so surprised at what comes back. So the example I could give about that would be on the blog posts where I've sworn, where I haven't typically sworn. Those blog posts have gone, for lack of a better word, viral. They get responses, they get social shares, when people say to me, "Thank you for being real." So that's one example. I don't mean to say go ahead and swear on all your blog posts. One thing I do that's a huge trick for me that I think everybody should do if you really want to advance your writing is I take snippets of everything in my life. So, I mean, I'm an iPhone user, so and I have an iPad, and wherever I am, I'll take notes. So I could be watching a television show, and I'll hear a funny line. I'll write it in my notes. I'll hear like a friend of mine say something funny. I'll write it down, without looking like a total geek. I'll be like, and write that down. If I read a blog post, I don't believe in plagiarism, and I don't believe in copying anything, but I do believe in being inspired by someone else's words. So if someone says a sentence that's funny or fun, I'll write it down and tweak it into my words, but still you get the tone of it. And because sometimes you just come up dry. You have your whole blog post written and you're like, well, that's boring as hell. What do? That's when I jump back in my notes and I grab all those snippets and I throw them all in. And then I go to my photos and I throw those all in, the ones that fit with what I've wrote. And then I edit. I probably spend, half an hour writing a blog post and 8 hours editing it.
Seriously?
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I do that.
I didn't know that. That's some serious editing.
Well, okay, I might have exaggerated, but copy blogger's all about that. They teach that all the time. It's like cut out the words, slice them down, keep them, refine them. You don't need that many words to say what you have to say. So I try and cut. It never works.
So it sounds like you've got a couple of influences of online blogging. That one you just mentioned was Copyblogger at copyblogger.com. I know I've been following Copyblogger Brian Clark, who started it since he started, basically. So I think
Beautiful
he
guy.
just celebrated 8 years of blogging, so that's pretty cool. And you also mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk. What is it about Gary that you really were attracted to in terms of how to connect with people?
Well, the one thing that Gary says that I just love is he talks about social media, and social media is just like real life. It's just like being social, and he also says social media sells shit, and okay, those are his words, right? But he's right, and it sells things when you're real. I think when you grow a following in a blog or in any business and you get to the point where you do want to monetize and you do want to sell something, if you have been authentic and you have written to your audience and they are loving what you have to share with them, and you give. I give 100%. It costs them no money. There's zero involvement in them. So the ratio is generally give 80, ask 20. For the longest time, I just give 100. And so the way that Gary describes it as well is that when the time comes that you want to ask, and let's say I want to sell, I'm talking about, hey, everyone, I want to eat a frog, and I love this green frog, and I think you should eat that green frog too because he tastes damn fine. Then if they really love everything I have said to them for the last year and they know that what comes out of my mouth is authentic, they're going to go and want to eat that green frog too. That's how social media sells shit, because it sells it in a way that has the marketing behind it and the truth and the authenticity behind it, where, of course, I can't say it as well as Gary. Nothing ever happens like that, but you know what I'm saying, don't you, Denise? Where he says, just be real, and that's the way the world's going. And I love how he just like talks off the cuff, just whatever comes out of his mouth comes out. And we're just people. We're all just learning, and we're all here to help and share and teach each other.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring a couple of comments in because people are, we got a very active audience, so I want to bring a couple of notes in here. I just want to give you, let's see, this is a fun one from Tracy. She said, "I noticed that you answer all your comments. That was one of the first characteristics that drew me to you, and you are hilarious, and you're hilarious." I'm writing like I talk, and love that you dropped the F-bomb. So that's nice. And then,
Denise, if I could just interrupt for one moment about that comment. Thank you, Tracy. I love it right back. That's a great tip for bloggers as well, is to I use a plugin called Comment Reply Notification. And I believe wholeheartedly that when someone takes the time to leave a comment on your blog, remember, 2% of people, if I have that number correctly, I think I do, ever leave a comment. So when they do, and you reply to them, it's nice to let them know that you replied to them and not expect that they're going to have to come back to your blog, come find that blog post, look for it, and, like la-da-da-da-da, wait to see if you replied, or worse yet, you don't reply. So I made a point from the get-go to not only reply, but to have that notification in my blog where it lands right back in that person's email inbox and they don't have to do any searching, because their time is valuable to them and it's valuable to me to save their time.
Right. Yes, I use that plugin as well, and I find it very helpful because if I do reply, I want to know if I do comment, I want to know if somebody replied to my comment. So
yeah, it's nice.
I use that as well. So, okay, here's a comment that I want to also, whoops, what did I do? Oh no, I lost it. Sorry. Melanie, it was one of yours, but I'll do another one. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. See, this is real life. I'm hitting the wrong button, and I'm losing the comments I wanted to share with you. Okay, well, here's a question. Donna asks, what about video blogging?
Donna, thank you for asking that question. I think there's so many parts to that, actually. For me personally, I think that video is going to be a huge part of 2014. And the way that I'm going about it is not only with Google Hangouts. Thank you to Denise for getting, for whooping my butt into shape for that one. But putting in more snippets of video on a blog and also posting them to YouTube, I think, I know makes a difference. I've read that a 3-minute clip of video is equivalent to 1 million words. So, video has some traction, and so I'm going to do that. And I've also noticed, I've done some video work myself this year. We were on television for the Cottage Life show. Our treehouse was on television, and that made a huge difference. And having more video that's in the works right now as well for opt-in packages for my blog. So yes, in answer to your question, I think that for lack of a better word, we'd all be idiots if we didn't do video in our blogs this year. Sorry, I know you're not an idiot.
Okay, I found one of the comments that I want to share with you. Okay, because this time I'll hit the right button. Melanie, who's somebody who I've known virtually for quite a while. Thank you, Melanie, for being here. She says, combining personal and professional content can be risky and tricky. Kudos to you, Lynne, for pulling it off elegantly and eloquently. And I agree, it is a hard one. And I think that one of the things that maybe you could talk about just for a minute or so, if you feel like it, is how you're combining your personal journey with Mike, your husband, and because I think that is what has also really pulled a lot of people to you. Right.
Well, I think that one's a tricky one as well. So I agree with you, Melanie. The way I look at it, I look at that from two perspectives. One thing that I would like to look at is, first of all, we all do make mistakes. So when I talk about things that happen personally and the mistakes I've made in my life or things that I've gone through, it's way more fun to blog about it when it's happened in the past, because you are now an authority on something. Well, you might have been the authority on making that mistake, but you're now the authority on that. So you can talk about that and have some fun with it, rather than talking about the mistake in the moment. Because if you talk about it in the moment, then it's like, well, then you're just a screw up. So there's those moments too, where where there's that fine line where you don't want to say, okay, this is an epic fail. And if I guess in my case, if it's an epic fail, I want to tell people why it was an epic fail and help them so that they don't have the same epic fail that I did. That's one part from a business perspective. From a cancer perspective, you're right. It's really hard to balance that personal part, because people don't want to learn about throw up and things that go on, the real stuff that goes on with cancer, and yet they do want to know about it, because people don't know what to say to someone else who has cancer, and they don't know how to approach that person, or they don't know they don't know to say, oh yeah, you're going to beat it, you're going to be perfectly fine, just keep going. And they don't know that can actually really hurt the heart of a person who's really fighting to live and thinking, well, yeah, I already thought I was going to try and beat it, but you don't have to tell me that. Like, I feel horrible, or I want to make everybody feel like it's safe to say those things, and it's safe to swear. It's safe to, to really be honest and give the straight goods on it. But there's other personal things that there's no way that, we all know sort of that line that you don't cross. No one needs to know the nitty gritty of personal stuff. But I think we can. You have a comfort level. If you're going to tell your girlfriend, I think it's okay to tell it across the blog. So I just talk like I'm talking to my girlfriend.
Well, I think you've got a lot of girlfriends out there. What you said, I think, is really important about not crossing the line, and that's one of the things that we as bloggers have control over, is that we can choose exactly what we want to share and how we share it, because of course it doesn't have to be like a complete vomit of everything that you think or do or eat or whatever. It just doesn't have to be that way. You can choose what to share that makes you retain your comfort level and also the comfort level of your audience, and you can test where that line is, and where it's comfortable for you or where it's comfortable for someone else. So, for example, I'm an introvert and I'm a very private person. So for me to share very personal stuff is difficult. It's difficult for me to reach out and ask for help and all that kind of stuff. So, that's kind of one of the challenges that I deal with in my public persona. And you are a more outgoing person in terms of your online persona, and that's what draws you to people. And I've certainly found that whenever I share that little bit of private stuff and what really moves me and what pisses me off or what I'm totally passionate about, that's when I get the connection with people.
I agree. I feel like it makes it safe. It makes it safe to talk about, and it makes it safe to put it out there. And I like to talk about things that no one else is talking about. There's a lot of gray matter out there on the internet, and I don't ever want to go into that gray matter. I want to go into what's real. I want to go into what happens in a chemo unit, and I want to talk about the fact that people can think that, oh yeah, be positive and everything's going to work out fine. And quite frankly, almost every person I've ever known in my family has died from cancer. So that just gets you right there. And I think, so I want to hang on to the positive part, and I want to inspire other people as well to know that even though those things have happened, that we can all learn from them and change them, and it won't ever take away from that loss, but why not grow from it and share it anyway? If I can help someone else to go through what they're going through by my sharing of my story, I'm a happy gal at the end of the day. If that makes a difference to them, that's all that matters, really.
Yeah. Well, why don't we talk a little bit about images? We've got a couple of minutes left, and
Hmm.
one of the things that I think you've also become known for is, well, there's a couple of things. One, you travel like crazy, and I'm so, envious of that. But also, you take a ton of pictures and you use them so brilliantly, both on your blog, which you touched on just a minute ago, but you also use them on social media. So
Right.
what is it that kind of inspired you to really go for that, the photo, aspect of, blogging and, I don't know, what do you call that? Photo blogging, I guess.
Well, there's several reasons. One, I started to learn early on that sharing photos in social media makes all the difference in the world. If you look at it just even from a Facebook perspective, a photo in a Facebook feed takes up more space in a feed, and it's going to get noticed in a feed. So, and it's just prettier to look at. Like, to me, I'm a visual, so it makes sense. I know that's what I look at. In Twitter, same deal. When I see a feed and I see the photos and I'm flipping through, I'm like, the photo will catch my attention. Pinterest. Everybody knows about Pinterest. The cool thing that everybody should also keep in mind about Pinterest is that if you make photos that are Pinterest friendly for your blog, the traffic that it'll bring to your blog is incredible. 80% of my social media traffic comes from Pinterest.
That's amazing.
Those photos mean something. And then I started to realize that photos, I think everybody thinks that photos are so complicated. And so then I started to get away from the fact of having to think I have to have expensive equipment. I don't have expensive equipment. Almost every photo you see on my blog I took with my phone or my iPad or with my Sony camera. It's like one click of a button. And by doing that, it also tells a story throughout a blog post. So if you open up a blog post and you see that it's just a lot of text and you're reading a blog post, again, there's no white spaces for some people. It's hard to take. You want to scan it. There's really nothing to sort of grab. So what I do is I write my blog post, then I break it up. I create white spaces so it's an easy flow with subheadings, and then I punch in those photos where the photo tells the story as well. So essentially, even if there wasn't a word in that blog post, that photo tells a story. And then again, that photo makes it easy for them to post it, to pin it to Pinterest. I make them all very easily shared, and I make sure that I have great pin it buttons on my blog so that they feel inspired to hit that button and share it on Pinterest.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good segue into the fact that you have just released your very first ebook about Kickass photos, photo apps.
Yes.
The Kickass blogger has a book on Kickass photo apps.
Imagine that.
So it's a beautiful book too. You created it on iBook, is that correct?
I did. I created it on iBook, but literally you can create it on any platform that you like, because essentially you just need to convert it to a PDF. In my case, to use it on my blog.
Right.
It wasn't going to Kindle, this one. It was just primarily for my blog subscribers.
So, well, I would like to invite everyone who is watching this live, and if you're watching the replay, that to go, first of all, check out Lynne's blog at lynneknowlton.com. You can also get there by typing in designthelifeyouwanttolive.com, and really read a few blog posts. I think that you'll be laughing, but you're also going to learn something. Today's post is all about 3-day post-holiday detox, and it was very funny, and with beautiful pictures too, illustrating the points. But also then subscribe to the blog and get Lynne's ebook on Kickass photo apps, because there's some really cool stuff. It's especially meant for people who have iPhones, which I'm not an iPhone, so iPhone user. I'm an Android phone user. So I've asked Lynne to do one with Android apps next.
There is. I have a second follow-up one, Denise, that comes after this one that is not only for Androids and iPhones, but also for desktop versions and iPad. So I just couldn't jam it all into one book, to tell you the truth. There's so many things I wanted to share, and I only share the ones that are top drawer amazing, that have really worked for me for years, not just one I used for 10 minutes and popped up there. So
Right. And I know that you experiment with a lot of apps, so you know what you're doing. And one of the things I really love about the images that you share is that you always have some unusual, beautiful font that you write something on the image, and it's always like, how does she do that? Where is she getting that? And that's always what I want to know. So
that's in book 2.
That's in book 2. Okay, well, get book 1 and then get book 2. So do you have any last tip or anything that you would like to leave our viewers here?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of what we were just talking about, the one thing I would like to do is talk just for a minute about that ebook, not for my sake, for your sake as a listener. For my sake, I would like to kick my butt. If I had a third leg, I would have kicked myself with it by now for not actually writing this book a year ago when Denise said, Lynne, I think it'd be a really great idea if you wrote an ebook. And thinking that it's way more complicated than what it was, because it was not complicated to do it. And I'll write about that on my blog, actually. So if anybody wants to learn that, I'm happy to share that and some of the tips and tricks along the way. But the reason I think that it would be great for you as a blogger is this little trick. The reason why Denise had taught me about writing this ebook was to do it only for blog subscribers, because it's really hard to get an email subscriber to a blog nowadays. We all want to, we hold our ebook, we hold our email address near and dear to our hearts. We don't want to go and just pop it out to anybody. And it's nice to get a present. So I know I personally think about, before I give over my email address, I either A, have to really be drop dead in love with this blogger and like googly-eyed and love them, or B, I want a present. And it's just the selfish in me. And so that's what I did. So I had been writing, and my subscriber list has been growing, and growing quite nicely over the last year. And then I got the ebook out, and I can tell you, and I only put the ebook out at Christmas time, my subscriber rate now is at a point where it has quadrupled. And if anybody follows Denise at this point, at any length, and listen to anything that she's ever said about email marketing and how important it is to have those email addresses, that is the way to do it. At least in my case, that has been extremely successful. I've never done anything that has quadrupled like that in weeks. Never. And maybe Denise, you'd probably be a better person to explain this than I would. Maybe this happens a lot to a lot of other bloggers, and I'm just sitting back going, why didn't I do this before now? Hello. So go and write it. It doesn't take that long, and it'll make a huge difference on your signups.
Well, I think that that's a great testimonial for having some kind of gift to give away to your blog subscribers, and I think you said it just beautifully, Lynne. So I want to thank you for spending time with me today and for sharing your personality, your bubbly, sparkling personality with the audience. I want to remind you that this is an occasional, usually once, maybe twice a month feature that I do, Adventures in Visibility, and you can subscribe to get notices about upcoming guests, upcoming trainings, because sometimes I do it myself and do a little training, or find out when the replays are posted on my blog. You can go to adventuresinvisibility.com to get that information. And in the meantime, I hope that we will see you here around the web on Google+. I love Google+. I love it.
Awesome.
And if you do have questions, any more questions for Lynne or for me, be sure to post them in the event page below or wherever you are. I'm assuming you're on the event page. Maybe you're on YouTube. You can post your questions there too. And we'll scan through them and get back to you and answer your questions if we can. So thank you for being here today. Lynne, thank you so much for joining me today. I really
It was
appreciate
my
you.
absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for my first Google Hangout. I survived.
Yes, you were great. You were great, and I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, take
Thanks,
care,
Denise.
everyone, and we will see you
Happy
soon.
blogging.